Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today I got a package from Turkey. This was sent to me by the Behar Bros. Now, full disclosure, they sent this to me absolutely for free for review purposes, which was very nice of them to do. Now, if their name sounds familiar to you, it's possibly because I've talked about them in the past, or maybe you already knew of them. They've made a lot of Sega Dreamcast VGA boxes over the years. Now, this item in particular has nothing to do with the Dreamcast. We'll talk about it in a bit. But again, they've done a lot of Dreamcast VGA boxes. If you're not aware, the Sega Dreamcast, my favorite game console of all time, outputs VGA as its like maximum output, and the video signal it gives off is so fucking clean and clear. And there's like a lot of options on the market to be able to tap into it, and a lot of them suck. But the Behar Bros ones are really good. The Hanzo, the Toro is my ultimate favorite. I mean, like people, really, you know, if you look it up, like that one always wins. That's like the best one. Not only because it's a highly built, high quality product that's built well, but also because it has a lot of additional features that the other ones simply don't have. And it has really high compatibility, you know, success, unlike piece of shit ones like those white Tomy cables that everybody buys because they're cheap. Fuck those things. They're junk. Don't buy them. Buy the Behar Bro ones. I mean, again, I'll have a link in the description so you can check out their website, you can check this out, etc. if you want to. That's up to you. But yeah, so in this case, this is something different. And it takes advantage of the fact that these guys are like wizards or something. Like, alright, so let me give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. They made one called the Toro, which again I did a video on. Now the Toro offered you the ability to get VGA out of the Dreamcast, or you could switch over and use RGB SCART for the games that don't use VGA, that don't support it, which was nice. No other VGA box can do that. But what I didn't know until recently, even when I made my video, was that these guys had found a way to use the Toro so that they could send high-definition signals over SCART cables. I didn't think that was possible. I've actually argued against that, but they proved me wrong. They said, go ahead and check this out. Set it up yourself. You have a Toro. So I did, and they were right. You can send a VGA signal over an RGB SCART cable using the Toro. So these guys know what the hell they're doing, which leads me to this particular product. So let me go ahead and open it up, and we'll talk more about it. Part of the reason I wanted this was because I recently got the FrameMeister. We'll talk about that in a bit, but if you're confused at all about like, what the hell is he talking about, what's all these cables, what's he saying, like, go back. I'm not going to give you guys like all the details of all these cables because I just did the FrameMeister video where I explained a lot of that. I will give you a little bit of a synopsis just in case you really don't want to go check that out, but yeah, so let me open this up here and we'll get started. So the first thing we have here is the unit itself. Now this device, I believe, is called the Garo. I know they usually say the name somewhere on the plastic, but I'm pretty sure it's the Garo, G-A-R-O. Okay, so we have that. We also have a SCART cable, which was nice of them to do. This is I can't tell you. All right, so it is a SCART cable. I don't know if you buy this, if it actually comes with a SCART cable. I think they might have just included this for free for me because I live in the United States. In North America, we didn't have SCART. It didn't exist here. So if you need SCART cables, you have to import them from Europe. So I think they were just kind of doing me a solid there. These look like really nice ones too. They're gold plated and they're thick. That's really cool. All right, so okay, I guess this is a good time to talk about SCART since there actually is a cable in front of me. So if you're in North America and you're like, what the hell is that? SCART was a video connection cable, okay? So you could plug this into your television and on one end and then plug it into your game console or your DVD player or whatever on the other end. And it would give you like a really high quality picture on a lot of consoles and stuff made in the 80s and the 90s. Problem is, in North America, we didn't have it. We had composite and we had S-video, which was slightly better, but still nowhere near as good as the capabilities of SCART. So in Europe, you guys are like, yeah, we had that, that's no big deal, every TV had that. Well, we didn't. We got shafted on that one. But the reason it's becoming more popular now is because of people have learned about things like SCART to HDMI boxes. I've done a video on like the cheapo one, and then things like the FrameMeister, again, which I did a video on. Those things, in short, will give you substantially better picture quality out of your game consoles if you set it up right. And so that's why I like devices like this. So yeah, this was necessary for this thing, and they just did me a solid by including it, I think. But there is, looks like there's something else in here. I don't know what this is. Hang on one second. Let's see. Let's cut this open. Sorry, I wasn't expecting. Okay, I can tell already what this is. Okay, this has absolutely nothing to do with electronics. This is just something really, really cool. So what this is, I can't believe they included this. Thank you guys in advance for saying this. It's really nice of you. This is a bottle of Sorel. It's basically, it's like, you know, Nutella. This is that, but the actually like really good version. I know Nutella is good, but this is on like the next level. Sorel really only exists in Turkey. There's apparently, I know there's a British version. I know because I've seen it. I was there. I saw it. It's not as good. This is like the real shit. It's chocolate hazelnut spread. It's fucking fantastic. Although I haven't had this particular one. This is the bitter dark chocolate one. I've had the regular one. My gut does not thank you, but I do. Thank you very much for that. That was a nice bonus just to get some of that, because you can only get the real stuff in Turkey, so that was cool. But yes, anyway, back to the device here. Now this device, as I mentioned before, is called the Garo. And it's a box that has, like I said, nothing to do with the Dreamcast. What it does is that it takes a component input signal and allows you to output either through VGA, which, to be brutally honest, I couldn't care less about. VGA, to me, is, at this point, a useless format. I know that's ironic because of everything I was saying about the Dreamcast, but, okay, here's the thing. VGA doesn't really exist on high-definition televisions anymore. It's very rare to find a TV that has it. Yes, computer monitors will have it, but I don't want to play my stuff on a computer monitor. I want to play it on my television. The only two consoles that optimize with VGA are the Apple Pippin, which I never use, and the Sega Dreamcast. Obviously, I do use that one, but I have a really high-grade VGA to HDMI scaler, so I don't want VGA stuff, so I don't really care about that feature. But the one I do care about is that it also takes component and outputs to SCART if you want to do that instead, which is no doubt why they included this cable. Now, you might be like, well, isn't that a downgrade because isn't SCART not as good as component? In theory, yes, and I always thought exactly the same thing, but they proved me wrong when they figured out how to get high-definition signals to run through a SCART cable. I'm going to obviously test that and see how good that actually looks, but the thing about component cables, man, is even though I think the picture quality that they offer is great, component cables fucking suck. The reason they suck, I mean, they're massively inconvenient. You know, there's five cables, so anytime you want to plug it in, it's a hassle. Okay, that's a small, nitpicky type of thing. But the other issues I have with component cables are, you know, you look at your television, and at best it has 2 sets of ports for them. Usually just one. In a lot of TVs, it's phased out now. It doesn't even exist anymore. And the reason for that is that it was never that successful. Component was really only around as the dominant cable format for like, what, 2 years? We went from composite, at least in North America, we went from composite being the dominant one, and briefly component, and then we switched over to HDMI. As a result, a lot less money was put into component. And what do I mean by that? If you think about HDMI, that's what everybody uses. So constantly they're making better HDMI cables, better higher grade HDMI switch boxes and stuff like that. You can buy HDMI switch boxes that are fucking lossless. You put all this shit in there, all these different consoles, these different devices, output through one cable into your television. You'll never know the difference because your switch box will handle it. Composite, as awful as it was around so long that they did exactly the same thing. You could have composite boxes that went from shit to shit, but it was the same level of shit. You know, it never got worse. And then the same thing with SCART. In Europe, it was so popular and successful, they put a lot of money into it so that you would have like high-grade SCART switch boxes. Component, not the same story. Because Component, it certainly has switch boxes. I've had them. I've had many of them over the course of my life. They suck. I never have found one that doesn't degrade the image pretty substantially. It's very disappointing. So I really don't like to use Component when I don't have to. Unfortunately, there are several consoles where that's what they max out with. The Nintendo Wii, which, you know, boo-hoo, I don't use the Wii, so I don't really care that much about that one. But the GameCube, the original Xbox, the PlayStation 2, they all use Component for their best video quality output. Now, I ran them through the FrameMeister through D-Terminal, and that was nice, but still, you get one port instead of all the ones you need because of the switch box issue. So this won't entirely solve that problem, but it does make it a little bit easier because I can at least take one of them and get it to run into my SCART network. And if it's successful, maybe I'll get more of these things. We'll see. Obviously, I'm going to test that. But Even though I could do that, that is not why I got this device. Or the reason I wanted this, very specific and probably a pretty unique reason, was for the PC Engine / Turbografx 16. This console. Now granted, this is the PC Engine, obviously the Turbografx 16 looks different, but you know what I'm talking about. I'll show a picture in case you're unfamiliar. Now, this is a console that was very popular in Japan. It didn't do that well over here, but now it's catching up here. There's a lot of people really noticing how great this console was. The problem with it, though, is it's locked with RF. That's the only type of video output it has. However, people have figured out that the console actually had RGB capabilities inside it. You just didn't have a way to plug in and get it. However, even smarter people, like my buddy Jody, who lives up in Canada, like the guy's like pretty much like the pinnacle of the TG16 community, at least it seems that way. He figured out, along with a bunch of, I'm sure other people figured it out too, this port on the back, the expansion port, this exists on both the PC Engine and the stock Turbografx 16. No modifications have been done to this console. He figured out if you just plug into the right spots, you can get RGB out of this thing. Thus, he makes things like this. This little box you can plug right in the back of the console like that. It's modded. This box is modded, the console is not. And it gives you component output by tapping into RGB. And that's fucking great, because the video quality is insane. I've done a whole video on this thing, you can see it all there. But there is one fundamental problem with that. Aside from the inconvenience of having to use component cables, which sucks for all the reasons previously stated, with an older console like this, and this applies to all those consoles, by the way, that use, there's a lot of things like the Genesis and the SNES are now getting component cables made for them that tap into RGB. They essentially do the same thing. Do you know why they're doing that? Because SCART didn't exist in North America. So a lot of people are saying, well, components, easy enough, we'll do that. The big problem that a lot of people aren't advertising with that, though, is that this is component, and your television very likely will not understand this, the frequency, the resolution that comes off the consoles. These consoles are only capable of outputting 240p. Your television ain't gonna fucking understand what 240p is. It can't. The lowest thing it can understand is 480i. When it detects anything lower, it'll try to upscale it, but it'll make it look like mud. In the case of, but that's only what it does with composite, because it knows composite is supposed to be smaller. With component, it's expecting a higher resolution, so it doesn't try to scale it. Because of that, most TVs, most monitors that support component will just be like, I don't know, fuck all, I don't know what to do. And they won't support the image, which sucks. I only have one television, I have like 5 or 6 monitors in my home. Only one of them was able to read off this thing. And if you go back and watch the video I did on this, you hear me say as much. And you also hear me say, I couldn't capture footage off it, so I had to aim my camera at the television, the one television I got to work, just so you guys could get a sense of what it looked like. I didn't want that. I want to be able to use this in my setup. I want to be able to capture footage of it. I want it to be nicely integrated. And because of the Behar Bros, I now have a way to do that. So the plan here is, I will connect component cables from this device to this device, and this device through Scart Cable into my Scart switch box, which is lossless, into my FrameMeister. I know that sounds like a lot of shit, and you'll have to understand a lot of different things for that to really make a lot of sense. But the idea in the end is to be able to play the PC Engine / Turbografx 16 on my main television through RGB, losslessly. That's the plan. That's what I want to achieve. All the other stuff it's capable of doing is just gravy. You know, it's extras. I don't necessarily need it. I'll test them out to kind of give you a sense of it. Like, for example, I know that it has a Scanline Generator built into it. Some people fucking love Scanlines because it simulates, you know, what a CRT does. Personally, I don't give a shit. I don't like Scanlines. It allows you to adjust the width of the Scanlines, and it allows you to switch like which part is a Scanline. Like certain lines are Scanlines, and other lines are Scanlines. If you're into Scanlines, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, you're probably like, well, who cares? I'm in the who cares category. So I've been using this thing for a while, and now it's time for my final thoughts on it. And to be honest, I have kind of a mixed review. See, first of all, I tested out the VGA output. I didn't care about it, as I said before, but I wanted to, of course, make sure, you know, I could use it. And unfortunately, I couldn't. I don't know what the issue is. I connected it to everything I had. I used multiple cables, I used multiple adapters, I used multiple monitors, multiple televisions, everything I had. Multiple consoles running at multiple resolutions. Never got it to work. Never. It would always say like unsupported format, or it would have a screen flickering, or it would just do absolutely nothing. I could not figure out for the life of me what the issue was. I contacted them and they told me to like mess with the H-Sync, V-Sync jumpers on it, and I did that. I still couldn't get it to work. Ultimately, we're not really sure what the issue is. We think it's just a compatibility issue of some kind, which I'll get back to that in a bit. But yeah, so that was unfortunate. Again, for me, no great loss, because I wasn't going to use that anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, that was technically, that occurred, and I want you guys to know that. Now, the other side of things, though, very different story. Component input out to SCART. That worked flawlessly. That did exactly what I wanted it to do. I tested that with everything, man. I tested that with the GameCube. I tested with it both in 480i and 480p, no problems. I tested with the PS2, no problems. I tested it with the Xbox, running in 720p on like the dashboard and stuff, no problems. It really, I shit you not, ran a high definition signal through a SCART cable. I was very impressed. So that was awesome, and it looked pretty good too, which is great. Now, unfortunately, the negative side of things, if you go back down to the VGA issue, if you intend to use this for VGA, there is something you need to be aware of, which is the sound. So if you have this thing, it has, of course, these 5 ports here, right? 3 are for the video, 2 are for the audio. Now, the video comes out on the other side through the VGA port, or at least it would if you could get that part to work. Unfortunately, again, I could not. But there is no 3.5mm audio out jack, which is usually what is associated with a VGA connection. There's usually with VGA you have the video part and then the audio part is separate. So they just have the video in here. So what you have to do is you have to bypass it with a cable like this. So basically you would take your 3 video cables, plug them in here, and then your 2 audio cables and put them in here. And then the video would come out of this box while the audio would come out of this cable into your television or your speakers or what have you. Again, it didn't matter to me because even if it had worked, VGA, I wouldn't have cared. But be aware of that, because this cable's not included. This is just something I have. So you have to know that. However, again, with SCART, not a problem, because all 5 go in, all of them come out through this one cable, which is fantastic. Now, the most glowing part of my review is that, like I said, what I really wanted this for was for the PC Engine / Turbografx 16, and it fucking, bam, knocked it right out of the park. It did exactly what I wanted. You know, it connected into my network, no problems, displayed on my television, looked fantastic. I spent quite some time playing Splatterhouse, it was great. But yeah, so that was awesome, and so yeah, no complaints of any kind there. It would also be, again, pretty useful if you get those upcoming like SNES and Genesis like component cables that are coming up, again because of the whole 240p thing. That's why it was really useful. On the negative side though, this thing requires a power supply, and it doesn't include one. Now that might sound like a really bad idea, but their logic to this was that they would have to mass produce power supplies, and then they would have to charge you for those power supplies. And the thing is, the power supply that they built into this thing is actually a really standard power supply. Like, this port is not unique. Like, it's the same kind of port that like the Sega Genesis Model 1 used. Like, a lot of electronics use this exact same type of port. It has, it's 9 volts is recommended. It has tolerances up to like 12 volts and stuff. If you have like external hard drives, chances are you have a cable that will work on this. Be aware you need one. It doesn't come with one, but odds are you have one, so you'll be fine. Now, in the end, you have to understand, this did exactly what I wanted it to do. It worked for my specific purposes, no problem. However, I have to be honest, I think this thing is more aimed at Europeans as opposed to North Americans. And the reason for that is, as a North American, what I have to do to utilize this is I have to have a device like this. I have to have some sort of component-based console that plugs into this, which is pretty normal. But then you have to output through SCART. And then I have to run it through either a SCART switch or just directly to something like the FrameMeister or this. Again, this is a SCART to HDMI device to my television. That's how I have to run it in North America. And hell, if I want to, I could run it through an HDMI switch box. So you're going through like multiple boxes. Now, to me, that's no big deal. I have the infrastructure for that. That's who I am. I have shit like this all set up and ready to go. Like, who else has a fucking cable like this just sitting around? I do. But obviously not everybody does. And in Europe, though, this would be much more useful, I think, to be brutally honest, because I think what you would do, in Europe it would be much easier. You would just connect the component cables to this, you could connect a SCART cable from this directly to your TV. Done. That's all you would need. So that might also, and that's why I want to talk about the compatibility issues, I think that might have something to do with it. That's just me speculating. I actually didn't even think to ask them about that. But that's kind of my guess, is there's some sort of compatibility issue that has to do with like the whole PAL NTSC thing, or maybe I'm just pulling that out of my ass. I don't really know. But I couldn't think of any other reason why the VGA stuff wouldn't work and the SCART stuff would. So for me, this is exactly what I wanted it to do, but I have to be honest, this would probably, for most of you, would probably be more useful for Europeans. If you're in North America, this could have a massive benefit to you if you're like me and you have imported a lot of SCART stuff and you're really getting into that to get the best out of your video game consoles. This will be really useful for anything like this that has component output on it but doesn't support anything higher than 240p. Then it'll be really useful because it'll plug right into your network, which is nice. So that's a really specific thing though. If you got the VGA part to work, that could also be really useful, again, depending on how your system is set up. But I don't know if it's a compatibility issue. For all I know, there's an issue with the board or something. I don't know what that problem was. I couldn't figure that one out. So unfortunately, I can't give you more of an assessment on that. But overall, man, like for my purposes, I recommend it. So keep that in mind. So that's it, guys. Again, thank you to the Behar Bros. If you want to check this out or check out any other stuff they did, there's a link in the description. Again, thank you guys for the Sorel. That was really nice of you. That shit's fantastic. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all later.